Christ, arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you'll find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Morning, good morning, good morning. It's been 33 days. That's a long time. It's been 33 days since impeachment charges have been filed against President Trump. 33 days. June 24th, 2025 was the last time he had impeachment charges against him. You know, Macbeth's quote, "It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." What does that mean? You know, I've got a redneck champagne bottle, and I'm getting ready to open it as soon as Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Senator Adam Schiff of California, James Comer, John Brenner, among others, are convicted of treason. Full of sound and fury, signifying nothing other than sort of kind of taking the air out of the balloon. Folks, you're about to listen to 2 hours of opinion and entertainment supplied by Last Call Radio, where you can see the difference. We're not doctors, lawyers, politicians, professional journalists, nor do either of us hold a doctorate degree in anything, not that that would make any difference, our opinion, of course. We only ask that you personally and or corporally not take our statements or those we voice from others personal, nor do we recommend you act on them as if they are facts, although they might very well be just that, facts, but again, our opinion. You're not required to listen to, act on, or repeat anything that you hear today, nor assume that they are facts, that any information we present is by no means meant to harm or threaten anyone. Good morning, Mr. Anderson. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. Although, you know, it's crazy around us, you know, that crazy train.
A lot of opportunities. What
happened to that guy? Oh my. All the news, you know, people dying.
Yeah, that's interesting. You can do a lot of things with it. We're getting older as a nation. And
we are.
We'll get into that in the second hour. We're not getting any younger, and we're not doing anything to take care of that, thanks to our government-run indoctrination centers, which you used to be a large part of. I don't hold that against you, Mr. Anderson, by the way.
What's that?
Public schools.
Oh.
Teaching.
Well, I tried. I thought I could be a good guy in the evil system, and I find that you're going to get overwhelmed.
Yep. Hopefully we get our guest in this morning. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, you know, I'm sure we have a lot of good guys in politics too that go there and they get buffaloed into going along with the good old boys that are there and been holding the ship for a long, long time.
I saw Charlie Kirk on Fox News this morning. And
he worries me, but go ahead.
I was fascinated by that. Absolutely fascinated by that.
What did he have to say?
Well, I mean, he's Charlie Kirk. He's going to say what he's going to say. Typical, you know, in anything that is going on in society. I have a lot of respect for Charlie Kirk. The missus and I watch him on a regular basis, and he has good arguments. Well-grounded. But I don't know. We'll see how this works out with Fox News. But it was interesting. So I was shocked to see him this morning. I've got you were talking about where we are as a society. Australia The Albanese government is the sitting federal government in Australia. It's led by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of the Labour Party. The Albanese government was sworn in on the 23rd of May, 2022, with the Governor General of Australia, David Hurley. The party governed with 2 to 3 seat majority in the House of Representatives in the first term and expanded its majority to 94 seats in the second term. I have to explain that to you because the headline is the Albanese government, Australia, is now paying for baby bonus for late term abortions. A baby bonus for women who abort after 20 weeks. They're now paying mothers for killing their healthy babies before they're born. An Australian mother who aborts her baby after 20 weeks in her pregnancy and up to birth can choose between a stillbirth parenting payment of $4,255 or a paid parental leave of $20,147. Down under?
Going down.
Yeah. Australian man criminally charged for stopping home invader with pepper spray. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
No, I'm just shaking my head, things that they're doing. Killing babies, buying their organs.
Yep. Well, that's
selling their organs.
We have a population problem in the USA, which could be resolved if we just stop killing babies.
Right.
Right?
We do.
Yep.
And they think we got to bring in foreigners
sometimes
to replace our citizens.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of those,
that picture just isn't right.
Yeah. Some of those foreigners, I might bring Dick Manasari in here to talk about that if we get charged up on the subject. Some of those foreigners can't obey our Constitution. Can't obey our Constitution.
If they're true to their religion.
Mm-hmm. And well, if they're not, what happens to them?
Well, they fight each other. Yeah.
Dan Bongino, this is what email that was sent to me this week. Dan Bongino makes the announcement, millions are stunned. So I clicked on that, expecting, nothing. It never said what the announcement was. Just went into some gobbledygook. And this was Conservative Patriots, or July 22nd. And I'm now unsubscribed to the Conservative Patriots. We don't need this kind of stuff, folks. We don't need it. AI, there's a lot of issues with AI. I don't know what we're going to do, Mr. Anderson, with regards to AI.
It seems unstoppable at this point. I don't know either. It's a very concerning thing. Some of us might be able to discern when something is AI.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that a little bit yesterday, and my son, kind of a character sometimes, he says, "Oh, I can tell because AI doesn't have a soul," and I'm like, "Well, that's a good point." But sometimes if you look at it really close, you can tell. But sometimes that stuff, it looks too real.
Yet emphasis on two. I can tell, at least for now.
TOO, right?
Yeah. It's too perfect. The wording, the phrasing is like, wow. Too perfect.
All of a sudden, people look like professional writers.
Yep. In our area here in Ohio, we have Intel supposedly coming in. And one of the things you're seeing are an increase in power lines. And I'm not talking thin power lines, folks. I'm talking huge power lines. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen in terms of electricity? How are we going to handle that?
Well, that's a big question. And Mark Trump, who is often outspoken on Coach Dave's CoachDaveLive.com show daily, 7 to 8 Eastern time. Well, Mark was talking about that, and the need for water has increased to a point that it's taking the water away from people to cool these power plants that are providing the energy for the data plants.
But that's okay, Mr. Anderson, because AI is going to make a decision in terms of how to handle that, right?
Oh, it'll solve all our problems.
It'll solve its problems, not theirs. I mentioned about the Obama has been referred to DOJ for criminal investigation, folks. Nothing is going to happen here. Full of sound of fury and signifying nothing.
Hey, watch this hand while that one's busy.
Yep.
Don't look at that guy behind the curtain.
And you'll like this one, Mr. Anderson. Israel's genocide is big business. In the face of the future, Gaza isn't starving. It's being starved. I don't know for sure what's going on over in Israel, folks.
We don't know because they don't want us to know.
And before we go to break, I've got a couple Babylon Bee headlines.
Here's one for you. If you're only looking at the New World Order coming from the left, you're going to miss it coming from the right. Babylon Bee.
Headlines. Obama argues he can't be charged with treason since he wasn't born in America. One more, and then we'll go to break and bring our guest on after that. Hunter Biden warns that without illegal immigrants, the price of prostitutes and crack will skyrocket. BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. Stay tuned, folks. Our guest, Steve Stern, will be coming up very shortly.
Reading from the King Jimmy, this is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 43, 44, and 45. The Bible says this: "The stranger that is within thee, that is within your country, shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee," the foreigner, the stranger, the alien, he'll lend to thee, "and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail." Verse 45 now. "Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee," not blessings of liberty, not blessings of plurality. God recognizes these clearly as curses. "All these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed. Because," why? "Because thou hearkenedest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee."
Last Call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
And we are back. Steve Stern is a passionate conservative leader who has dedicated his life to upholding the principles of election integrity and civic responsibilities. He's not only created a platform for expressing patriotic favor, but has also become a prominent voice in the conservative movement. He's worked alongside many prominent leaders in the conservative community, such as President Trump, Steve Bannon, General Flynn, Mike Lindell, and many others. He has a deep commitment to preserving the foundations of American democracy and has emerged as a leading advocate for election integrity, which we're going to talk about. But there's something else that he's doing that has really attracted me to Steve's organization and what he's doing. Why don't you bring Steve on with us, please? Morning, Steve. Welcome to the Last Call, brother.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on. So you were going to say one other thing that I was doing, and I was waiting for you to hear that.
I'm going to let you talk about that, Steve. I know you're very bashful and you don't like to talk, but we're going to let you talk about that. But I need to warn our audience this morning. Both Steve and I are entrepreneurs by practice and by nature. That means we're stubborn, we're opinionated, and we like to talk. So I don't get to talk much today because I'm going to let Steve do most of the talking. Steve, I like what you're doing with the election integrity. It's very important. Why don't you give us a little background? I'm by trade, I'm an executive recruiter. So where is Steve coming from? And let's talk about family life, where you were born. You went to work early on, like I did. I started delivering papers, I think, when I was 10 or 11, 12 years old, and have worked all my life since then. And I don't regret that. As a matter of fact, it's been a blessing. Go ahead, Steve.
So I was born in Brooklyn, and my dad was in the shirt business, and he was working for a gentleman who was older, and he passed away, and the son took over, and my dad didn't get along with my son because my dad was old school. So he decided to work for another company, which he didn't like. So his brothers were in Miami Beach, and they owned some hotels, and they were barbers, and they invited him down to take over a hotel and get involved. Well, we got down, we moved down there. There was no hotel. I guess the brothers just tried to get him down there. So he leased a hotel with his brother, and he didn't like it. So he was always in the clothing business, and he found a gentleman, actually two gentlemen, who had a little wholesale business, and he got involved in that. So after school, in junior high school, I would take the bus. I'd get out about 2:30, take the bus downtown Miami, and got involved. And then one of the things that happened back then was the Cubans had come over from Cuba. That was when Castro was taking over. They got out before that. And these were very good gentlemen who ran businesses. They had retail stores, and there was about 4 or 5 of them that opened up in Miami. And I went over and, they asked them to help me understand the business. Of course, they didn't speak much English. I didn't speak much Spanish. So they taught me a little Spanish. I taught them a little English. And they see this 12-year-old kid coming in there. They said, wow, that's unbelievable if somebody has that kind of interest. So I got my education with them and my dad. And when I was 18 years old, I was in Dallas, and a gentleman, I went to a show, a men's show. And I was looking up at the guy's little background that he had, and he had 5 or 6 shirts up there, and he came out, and he was about 80 years old. And he said to me, son, what are you looking at? I said, well, I'm looking at those shirts up there. And he said, well, you're a pretty smart guy. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, those shirts made me a lot of money. I own half of Laguna Beach. And I said, well, that's very nice. He said, well, yeah, I want to retire. He said, I did JCPenney for many, many years, and it made me a lot of money. And these shirts are very important. So here's what I want you to do. After we discussed everything, and I told him what I was doing and how I, worked round the clock. And he said, well, we're going to make you a lot of money. I said, that's great. He said, go back home, go to JCPenney, buy these shirts. And what they were banded bottom. So a banded bottom shirt is a shirt that has a little band on the bottom. And that shirt became pretty much my life. What happened was we bought those shirts, we changed the labels, and we went to a show in Miami, and 2 guys from Pompano, Florida, JCPenney, come in, sit down and said, hey, are you making those shirts? I said, we're developing them. I said, a gentleman, I told him what happened. He said, oh, great, because this is just what we need here. And he said, here's the address of the Miami buying office. Go down there. So make a long story short, we went down there. I got involved. Eventually, 3 years later, I was doing $14 million a year for 44 years. And how did they do that? Well, I developed a whole line of men's mature shirts around these banded bottom shirts. And today, we're the #1 company on banded bottom shirts. And after 44 years, JCPenney came to me and said, hey, we're going to go younger. I said, guys, I've been involved with you guys for 44 years. And 2 guys came in, one from Apple and one from one of the other companies. And they were very wealthy guys, and they were going to take JCPenney to younger. And I said, guys, there's no way you're going to do that, because JCPenney can't turn fast enough to do this. And sure enough, 2 or 3 years later, trying to do what they did, they sold their stock back. Company pretty much went bankrupt. the people in the shopping centers took them over, and they no longer are a dominant factor in the business. And so that what happened was after that, we sold Sears for a long time, and then we sold Kohl's. And then all of them decided that the shirt was more for the older people. They were dying off and nobody was going to buy them. So my son got involved in the business, and we put him up on www.banditbottom.com. My son doesn't talk much about it because you see our flag shirts behind me. And we are the number one guys on Bandit Bottom in the world, actually. And still today, there's tons of people buying them. So all those people who said they were going to be dead had no clue what's going on. Sure, lots of people passed away because this goes to the more mature people. Then a lot of people ask me how I got involved in the flag shirt. Well, prior to 9/11, about 3 years before that, a gentleman who also sold pennies, pennies also kind of bankrupted those guys because they didn't know how to go and do what we did. And what they were doing a huge sweater business with pennies. And once pennies dropped them, they had to go out of business. And they were in business since 1934. So behind me, for the people that could see us, and the one that I'm wearing, were the top 2 shirts that this company was making. And then my son and I took it to the next level, and we built it to a huge company. And how did we do that? Well, we went online, plus we were selling our stores. And what we do is every customer that bought our shirts, we would thank them. And they would say, well, nobody ever calls us to thank them. I said, well, that's why I'm still in business. So I'm in business 71 years. We're still doing good. I gave most of the business over to my son, so I could do more on the political side. And then you want to know how we got involved in the political side. A couple of things that I was prior to all this. When I was in college, I was in a fraternity, Sammy. I took over their alumni with 100,000 people and did a lot of stuff there. I was also the secretary of the Florida Tennis Association, because let's get back to family. I would go in at 4:30. I would get up at 4:30 in the morning. I would get to the office about 5, work till about 4:30, and be on the tennis courts with my kids for many years. We always owned a tennis court, still have a tennis court. So I played for a long time, and we got involved with the kids, and 4:30, I would play with them for 2 hours. Then I'd get back on the phones to JCPenney in California and Washington, all the states were on the West Coast. And I would continue work till about 10 o'clock. Then I'd watch TV with my wife, and about 11:30, go to sleep, back the next day. Now, on the weekends, we'd go to tennis tournaments. And while we were going to tennis tournaments all over the state, I would visit the JCPenney stores and make sure their stock was in good shape. And then eventually the Miami buying office guy gave me the computer runs of everything we were doing and said to me, Steve, come on over to my office. We're going to let you use our Watts lines. Back then, we didn't have free telephone service. We had to pay for phone calls. So they let me use their Watts lines, and people thought I was the assistant buyer for JCPenney. So for many years, I worked on that. Then about 25 years ago, I got involved in the Broward Republican Executive Committee. And that's how all this started. Now, a funny thing happened. I guess it's not really funny, but a lot of it's still happening today. And that's why I got involved. So it took me 3 months before somebody returned my call. Then it took me another 3 months before I got an application. So now we wasted 6 months of time of getting involved. Now I go to my first meeting, and I sit down and I'm listening to what they're saying, and not a person comes up to speak to me or says anything or advises me what to do. I go to the next meeting, the same thing. So I go up to the chairman afterward and I said, Madam Chairman, nobody is really doing anything about getting members involved. And she said, oh, yeah, you're right. I said, could I become the membership director? She said, sure. I said, also, I'd like to answer the phones because it took 3 months before somebody called me back. So I went to the phones, and there was 186 messages on there, of which I called everybody back who I could and explained to them we apologize. The guy that was answering phones was sick, blah, blah, blah. And I got 35 new members because a lot of those people had called up and wanted to become members. So you could see nobody even called it back. So we'll fast forward to about 5 years ago. And now we're going to tell you how the precinct strategy and the election security has changed everything. So back then, Dan Schultz, and I'm not sure, are we live on where people can see this, or are we only on the radio? So,
We're live.
okay. So what happened was about 5 years ago, I was watching Steve Bannon, and Dan Schultz got on and started talking about precinct strategy. And I want to tell everybody to go to www.precinctstrategy.com, because that's how I really got started and how this thing mushroomed. And Dan has a book, which you can find on his website and go to Amazon and buy it. I think it's very important. It tells you all about what precinct strategy is, and I'll explain to you what precinct strategy and how all this has merged together. So I called him and I said, I'm the membership director out at the Broward Republican Executive Committee. We've had some great success. And I told him what it was. And he said, oh, Steve Bannon is looking for people who have success stories. I said, okay, that's great. So he texted Steve and Cameron, the producer. And about 3 or 4 weeks later, they texted me and said, Steve, we'd like to have you on, and we're going to Skype you. Well, I had no idea what Skype was back then. So I went to my tech people and we purchased the Skype. And so the next day I got on and they said, you're going to be on at 10:15. And I got up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I've got a little pad, and I'm writing notes, because here I'm going to get on with 1 million people or 2 million. I had no idea how many he had. And I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. And I guess I should have done it the day before, but my mind, while I was sleeping, kept telling me, you got to do this. So I get up at 3, I make some notes, about a page, full of what I wanted to say. And I figured I'd go back to sleep. Well, I never went back to sleep because my mind was going, and you know what happens with this. Your mind goes and you see all these things and you can't fall back asleep. All right. Well, they call me at 10:15 and I answer, and it's a commercial during that time. And I hear Steve in the background with the people coming on. And he says to me, Steve, we're running a little late today because we had some extra guests. So you'll get on a little later, but stay on with us and listen to what's going on. So 10:30 comes on and they text me and say, hey, we're still running late. It'll be about 11 o'clock. Well, to make a long story short, I figured, well, I'm not going to get on. Losing about 5 pounds of sweat, because you're sitting back there thinking, what the heck's going on? You're listening to everything that's happening. You're hearing Steve talk to his guests and tell him what to do and make sure everything is true and honest. So about 11:43, Steve comes on the commercial and tells you, Steve, you're going to come on at 11:46. Well, about that time, I forgot everything I was going to say. And I get on and I go on my 10 minutes or 12 minutes, whatever it was. And about a day later, Cameron sends me a clip of the show, and I listened to it, and I did okay. And I figured, oh, they'll never ask me again. But anyway, about 3 weeks later, they text me and said, hey, we got so many people call. You're a great salesman, and we want to have you back on. So I've been on about 150 times, and we'll tell you how important all this is, because precinct strategy led into the election integrity. And how did that happen? Well, if you see the two pictures behind us, they are both with President Trump. One is at an event at the Broward Arena here, of which I was able to go into a conference with President Trump. They picked about 25 people. Most of the people paid for it, a lot of money, about $25,000, to take pictures with President Trump and sit with them. One of my candidates who I was helping actually got somebody to donate the money for her. And the lady who was running the event, because I had got them so many people, she got me in with this thing. And during that event, we set up tables and blocked everybody from coming in and made sure the 18,000 people pretty much went by us. And we had about a table set up to have people sign up and get involved.
Smart. See, I'm going to let you come up for air.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're going to take a quick break. Stephen Stern, I asked for a bio and I got it. When we get back, we'll continue the conversation with Steve Stern. B.J. Edwards, along Mr. Anderson. This is your last call, folks.
This concept, this principle, although in many ways unique to Israel under the Old Covenant, that is, the Israel of the Bible, not modern Netanyahu Israel today, but the Israel of the Bible under the Old Covenant, it was particular to them. But the general equity, that means that the general moral principle underlining this pattern, this concept, is true of any nation, especially nations that in their foundation, in their formation, in their history and heritage, were Christian nations. We have been a Christian nation. Many European Western nations were Christian nations. And as we have turned our back on the Lord and neglected to obey his commands, we are falling, I believe, under national covenantal curses. And one of those curses is foreigners ruling over us, not merely from some distant place, not from across the pond, but in our midst, that they would invade our nation, and from within our nation, they would rule over us, economically lending to us, and us borrowing from them. Politically, they're holding high office and dictating legislation and the rules of the land that we now have to follow. God, this is the point that I'm making, God clearly saw this as not a blessing of liberty, not, oh, this is great, we can fulfill the Great Commission now because the whole world, all the nations are coming to us. Nowhere in God's word did he say that these things will happen, and won't it be great? No, these things will happen, and clearly, obviously, it's a curse. God understood this as a curse, and Israel, God's people.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we're back with Steve Stern. Steve, there's a lot of similarities. You are a very successful businessman, and I describe my history with this. I was not able to keep the business going because I'm kind of like a laser type of guy. Once I get onto something, I mean, I laser in on it, and everything else falls apart. I had a very successful business. I got bit by the righteous bug, which I think you got bit by the righteous bug as well. And all I did was try to change things. And this was 38 years ago. I started off with going after politicians first, getting the right person elected to office. Well, you know how that worked out. Then I went to the church, tried to get the church to preach sermons to their congregation so the congregants would be salt and light in the world. And you know how that worked out. So finally, I end up with a natural family, and I'm a firm believer that as goes the family, so goes the church. As goes the church, so goes the nation. The family's broken. But I lasered in on trying to change things, and I see you are also trying to change things, and you're being very productive at it. You've gone through the election integrity. You're still keeping the business going with the help of your son, of course. But I'm impressed. Listen, you could have sat back and said, you know what? There's no way we can change this. I'm not even going to bother. What made you make the decision? What? And I know you can get focused, and I know you can get stubborn, and that's good. We need people like that in the battle. But what? Come on, Steve. Where's your common sense? You know you can't change anything here. What's the matter with you?
Well, the truth is we have changed things, and we're going to explain why. And we'll go to the next picture of President Trump and myself. That's at Mar-a-Lago 2 days before the election. But before we do that, you asked a couple of good questions because, when we first started, we did have a problem getting the things changed because when I was on Bannon, Dan Schultz told me we have 400,000 slots in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and the Republicans have 200,000 people involved. And today, 5 years later, we have 400,000 slots and maybe 210,000 people involved. So we're going to explain all that stuff and what happened. But you ask a lot of times, well, look, everybody gets burned out, right? You work, do this, and I'm 12 hours a day. I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I'm texting people. In order to stay with Steve Bannon, you got to text him at 4:35 in the morning because nobody's texting him at 4:30 and 5 in the morning. And that's why he loves it, because he says, every time I get on, he said, hey, this 84-year-old guy, he said, we need people to help. If he can do it, why can't everybody else do it? So we're going to explain that also. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you a great story and why I got inspired after I did get a little burned out, because we've been doing this. And this is probably the most important thing that happened. So on my 81st birthday, I went to New York, and I came back actually on my birthday, May 20th. And in the mail, there was this. For the people that could see it, there's a little rip in the back of the envelope, and you could see that. And and it's very important to understand, because you're a God-fearing guy and you understand what happened with God. Well, God must have done something, because my wife got the envelope, which she never answers the mail. And she took the envelope, and you could see the tear in the envelope. Okay, so now we're going to open the envelope. I'm going to tell you what was in the envelope and why this didn't get torn. This is the original letter, and I'm going to read it to you, and I want everybody to see this. They can see who the signature is, because you recognize signature. You can see what it's saying. Yeah. So it says, "Dear Steve, we join your family and friends in wishing you a happy 81st birthday. Our nation is strong because of hardworking patriots like you who believe in and defend the great American ideals of faith, family, community, and country first. Your commitment to excellence and dedication, exemplifying the American dream through ingenuity, hard work, and principled leadership, is the foundation of your tremendous success and demonstrates the proud spirit of family-owned and operated business. As you celebrate this special day, we hope your heart is filled with joy, knowing you have experienced our country's greatest blessings, freedom, and the attention of your loved ones. Melania and I send you the very best wishes for your continued health, happiness, and success. Happy birthday, and Mike, may God bless you and your family. Sincerely, Donald Trump." Now, how I got this letter, I have no idea. We think that Liz Harrington may have told President Trump to watch me on Steve Bannon, or told him what I did and why was all this happening. So let's go to this other picture behind me, because that's probably the most important thing that we're going to talk about today. So President Trump endorsed precinct strategy. And how did that happen? Liz Harrington was working for him. She was a friend of Steve Bannon because she had worked with him. Dan Schultz, myself, Steve Bannon, Liz Harrington had a conversation. We told Liz why we wanted President Trump to endorse precinct strategy, and he did. So I called up the secretaries, and, people say, "Well, Steve, how did you get to see President Trump?" Well, it's the old story. If you try and you never give up, more than likely. So I got to his secretaries and I said, "Look, I'd like to see President Trump. I had seen him at this event, and he said that I should come up and see him," which he did. He asked me to, on the left side, when I was up there, he asked me to give my card to his all his assistants. There were 4 assistants with him. So not one of them followed up. And this is the problem in the country, and I'm going to tell you how important this is and why we're in the shape we're in. So I did get to his secretary, and the secretary spoke to President Trump, and President Trump made an appointment with me 2 weeks before the one where the picture is. And he canceled it because he had to go to New York, so I figured he wouldn't see me. So actually, he saw me on this day. And why this day was important? So I was going to see him at 4 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, we were having an event for him that we had worked on for over 3 months. And that event was with Jexit USA and another thing, United America. And both of those organizations I was involved with, Tom Trento, and they were fighting for Israel. And we had an event for him, presenting him with a video and an award for everything he did for Israel, as you know he did. So let's go up. I went up to see him. I was there at 4 o'clock. This was 2 days before the last election. Why did I go up to see him? I went up to see him to ask him to get people involved when he decided he was going to run for president again, and go to the rallies and ask them to get involved. Well, why was that important? Well, Steve Stern gets on your show or anybody's show, there's thousands of people. But when he talks, he's talking with 50, 100,000 people, plus everybody watching on TV. So he did do it a couple of times, but not enough. So as we're discussing everything, I said, "Hey, I got 2 candidates, one in Vermont and one in New Hampshire. Would you endorse them?" I figured I had nothing to lose. So he called his pollsters who were sitting there while we were there, by the way, I was up with my wife, my grandson, and 6 of his secretaries, and Liz Harrington. She flew in to this event. So he was calling his pollsters during our conversation. I was there for 45 minutes. And at the end of the thing, he said, "Yes, I will endorse these candidates, even though I know they're going to lose." I didn't want to ask him why, but it was very gracious that he did this because I'm just an average guy, but he knew how hard I worked. So in our conversation, which really changed my life, he said to me, what do you think about the 2024 election? And I said, well, look, nothing has really changed. They're still cheating. He said, I agree with you 100%. What are you going to do about it? I said, well, look, we have this precinct strategy Zoom. He said, yes, I know. I've heard about it. He said, why don't you move your precinct strategy with election integrity? I said, well, look, Mr. President, I call him Mr. President. He wasn't president at that time, but I figured, out of courtesy, I would do that. So he said, well, let's see what you can do. So 5 weeks I went and I called all the people who were important in election integrity that I could find. I called all my friends. I asked them who was the leaders. And then I asked the leaders who else was the leaders. And we got about 100 people on my list. So I asked 5 people to speak on our next election integrity call. We had maybe 400 people sign up. And they don't just sign up because you put out a thing for it. You've got to call them. You've got to text them. You've got to email them. Not once, but about 20 times. So we were doing this for about 2 years. And then the big thing happened. So I was on Steve Bannon the morning of one of our election integrity things. And I made a change on something that changed what to do. Steve is an old school guy. So you've seen me. I put up these posters, boards, whatever you want to call them, with my name, the company, the phone number, and my email. But I take it down. You see, you just dropped it. So on that day, we put up sstern1054 at on the bottom of the screen. And we got 1,000 people to sign up. Well, here's the problem. It took me 3 hours to send them links, because we send links to the thing. Then he said to me what changed the whole thing. He says, Steve, we're going to put this live on Getter and on the War Room. I said, that's great, Steve. Thank you. Why are you doing it? He said, well, number one, I know how hard you work, and you should be putting this live all over the place because you're going to get more people. So the next day, Maureen Bannon called me, said we had 60,000 people watching you and the event. And I said to myself, wow, why didn't I think of that? So back then, as an 83-year-old guy, I said to me, you got to learn something new every day. And what I said, okay, we're going to take this worldwide. And so I started calling up all my friends and said, who are the great podcasters? Who can help us? So we got up to 200 podcasters, and a couple, we were getting more and more people on. But let's just give an example. 2 weeks ago, when we had it, we had over 5 million people on, and we've gotten as many as 8 million people on it. So you could see how important it happened. Now, who is broadcasting it? Because I get on a lot of programs, and only one person asked me to verify what's going on. So Steve Gruber, who is on Real American Voice, had me on, and he said, Steve, you got to go for a commercial? Oh, are you good?
About 2 minutes.
All right. So Steve Gruber says to Steve Stern, I want you to send me a text on where everything was. So I sent him my text on everything, and I put Stern American Rumble on there. We got 60,000 people on that, or 70 at that time. And then I started writing down all the different people. Voice of America, Voice of the People. They got about 1 million people on. We had all these different podcasters, which I gave them the numbers on. And here's the thing. If I told them at that time we had 8 million people, we probably had more. And here's the reason. We have a lot of people like yournews.com, who is right here in Florida. And he doesn't know how many people it gets on, because he puts it on his www.yournews.com, and he doesn't have control of how many people watch it. And he posted it continuously. So we could have had another 100,000 people on. We have it on a lot of other people for that. So I know we got a commercial coming on, so go ahead. Go to it.
All right, Mr. Anderson, if you would, Steve Stern, without taking a breath for the past 30 minutes, an incredible energy, folks. It's good to have him on our team. It is. And what he's doing is exemplary. How he's doing it, same. So when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. And I have a couple questions for Steve when we come back. Again, B.J. Edwards along.
You need to hear this. The destruction of the family is the destruction of the Western world.
Bummer.
And we are back. If we have some panelists from time to time that like to add comments or have questions. So if any of the panelists have any questions, unmute yourself and fire away. Otherwise, we're going to get back into it. And Steve, we got about 10 minutes. And one of the two things that I want you to go through is, number one, what are you doing right now? And it's a little different because this is how I ran into you recently. And it's got to do with unifying. And it's just not about Steve, but it's about other, especially podcasters. And if you wouldn't mind, kind of get into that. I know you want to get into the history. We have everything but your shoe size, Steve, and I appreciate that. But I think it's important that we get into what you're doing now, because I want to promote that. I think it is a tremendous idea. And the thing that I talked with, Michelle has been helping out a lot with this, Swinnick, is that you're trying to find commonality, not differences, but commonality in the people you're trying to work with. Would that be a fair statement, Steve?
Yeah, and Michelle and I started this, actually. She was the first one who did she was my co-host from the beginning, and then she went to work, and she still works for me, and we that's how we got together.
Mm-hmm.
What she did was she went to work to show everybody what the problems were in Maricopa County. And she introduced me to a lot of people. I introduced her to a lot of people. And what the most important thing was, why you asked this, well, let's talk about what happened with us on election integrity, because it's important, and what changed a lot of things. So the RNC was lacking communication. That's a problem, I got to tell you. I'm a communicator, as you know. I call everybody. I want all the podcasters to meet each other, whoever cares. And communication is a problem in the United States because one person doesn't call the other, one state doesn't. So we're going to have an election security call this week. I want to let everybody know. And what we did, we changed the way we're doing it. Every time we have one, which is about 2 to 3 weeks, or if like I'm going on vacation in August, we'll have it in 4 weeks. We have a state represented. And why is that important? Because we talk about what's happening in the state, and this whole thing has got to be communication between everybody. And when I was on, and I'm going to tell you what happened during our election security call for the last years, we got a great call from the RNC, and they gave us a gold star. And what happened was I got on 143 podcasts, and we talked about protect the vote and it's still there, to become a poll watcher and poll worker. So on the last election and all our election security calls, what they told us what happened was when President Trump won the election, Susie Wiles texted me and said, "Thank you for all you're doing." And then it started. General Flynn texted me, called me, said, "I understand what happened and I understand what you did," along with Bannon and John Fredericks, and all the people started calling me, texting me, said, "We won the election. You were one of the people that helped." And I said, "Why was that?" He said, "Because all the people that came on your election security call understood what was happening and what they had to do. So we had, instead of 100,000 poll watchers and workers, we had 220,000. That made a big difference. We learned from all your different organizations, and I asked people to join them. Cleta Mitchell, Jovan Pulitzer, True to Vote, all the different organizations that people didn't know. And before we go, and we only have a few minutes, I want to let everybody know that this Wednesday, coming up, the 30th, we're going to have our election security call. Why is this going to be big? Because the last one, we had a gentleman on, and we'll try to get him back on again. And he talked about the EO, executive order President Trump's going. And if you want to know about it, we'll send it to you. But Peter Tickton is working with him, with Dr. Corsi, and we're helping him along with General Flynn and with other people, working on executive order that's going to change the elections. And that took place because, go ahead.
Go ahead. Do you have a website that we can go to? One website that we can follow?
No, because we're not an organization. We bring people together. What you got to go is if you join Stern American and go to Stern American Rumble, everything is there. That's my site. Okay. So Stern American, that's the most important thing. Follow me on X, because that's where we put everything up. My assistants are continually posting. But this Wednesday, why it's important, we're going to feature the state of Illinois. We're going to have the chairman on there, Kathy Salvi. We're going to have General Flynn, hopefully coming in from Europe. We're going to have Nancy Hayes, who's in Cook County. She's going to talk about what she's doing in Illinois, along with Annie Parchett, who's one of our big people. She's the chair of Rock Island. She's going to be talking about that. Then we're going to we try to have a podcaster on each time. Terry Newsom, who's got a podcast in Illinois, is going to be on there. We're going to have Rick Richards on from Atlanta, talking about how they're helping on that. We're going to have Carol Davis on She's a big on EIN with Cleta Mitchell. She's in Illinois also. We're going to have Jimmy Lee Tillman, who's running, Dr. Tillman. He's going to be running for Senate in Illinois. So you can see all the Illinois people coming on. Then we're going to have Peter Tickton coming on. He's going to be talking about Tina Peters. You know, we had a bunch of ones with Tina Peters. We're going to have Marley Hornick on from United Sovereign America, and Greg Stenson on. So we have a lot of people. We get 14 people on. It's very informative and it's very important. The last one we had was from Washington. And we did have Tina Peters on a couple of months ago from prison, and they've knocked me off from communicating with her, which is terrible. So we have all these people doing it. So in the time remaining, if there's any questions, I'll answer them. And, you know, we weren't able to go everything, you know, and people say that, and I want to tell you, I always have a little thing up here because a lady saw me on Bannon, and you see what this says, slow, take a breath. So I'm glad you interrupted me. She said to me, go home, take some oxygen because you don't do, because that's my enthusiasm. And that's, people ask me, well, what vitamins do you take? You got to be born with this. If you don't have a passion for what you do, you can't survive. But you know, you mentioned something very important. You have to have family, you have to have your wife, and you got to have your business, and you got to have politics. You have to balance them off. And we will tell you how we do that when we get a chance. Noam Davis, you got a question?
Yeah. Before you do that, politics is a lot like oxygen. Okay. You can say you're not going to breathe it in, but you are daily. It's part of your life, whether you like it or not. Go ahead, Norm.
I believe you're working harder than the president. I didn't think anybody did, but I about decided you are. I don't know if you remember, we've had a few conversations. It's been a couple of years ago. And you gave me Bill Cook's number with the Black Robe Regiment, and he had me on his show. And BJ was on there at the same time, and he listened to what I had to say and called me up and had me on his show. And then I've been a Saturday regular ever since. So I just want to thank you for all you're doing. And yeah, I've got some information. I may give you a call this week. I've still got your number if it works. But God bless you for all you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. That's very nice of you, you know, because, you know, people, you know, in our executive committee in Broward County, I run fundraisers and everything else. And, you know, very few people help you. This is the biggest problem. All these organizations are social clubs. We need to get the people in, and that's what we're working on around the country. And we're explaining to them that we need to find people, one, from Turning Point, the younger people who have to take our place. Two, the people who really want to do something. We were lucky. We found one girl in Broward just now, and she's busy calling the 100 top companies in Broward County for a big event that we're having in September. But the most important thing that we're doing in September, which I want to let you guys know, September 30th, write that down and put it in your calendar. We're going to have a precinct strategy Zoom call with 50 people, one from every state, telling everybody what they're doing in the state and letting everybody know how they can get in touch with the people, because that's the most important thing. I was in Arizona in Las Vegas 2 years ago, met a guy, and I was at the Clay Clark event, and he had a booth and he was signing up people. And I said, well, why aren't the people signing up online? He said, because the people don't know how to do that. I said, it's insane. All everybody has to do if they want to get involved is go to your local county, look it up online, and just put in the Republican Party of Broward County, the Republican Party of wherever you are. If you can't find it there, look for Republican clubs in your county. You can get involved. We have 16 clubs, and it's funny because in Broward County, we're just starting the Romanian club, the Romanian Republican club. We need to bring in other ethnicities into the Republican Party because we have neglected in a lot of cases these other people. So we're doing this in Broward to show everybody what's doing. Dan Schultz is doing it in Wisconsin. So that's just some of the things we're doing. We are not sitting still. We don't think there's enough people involved because President Trump won. Everybody said it's great. He's doing all the work. Baloney. We lost a lot of down ballot. And I talked to the RNC about that. And where I say the most important one is in Orange County, California. And Joe Hoft and myself are working very big on Orange County. Why? My son played tennis for Cal Irvine. So therefore, you know, I love that area and I try to help him. And I go to there in San Diego every year, pretty much for the last 30 years. So we have got to help. Anything else, Norm? I know we only have limited time here, so I want to make sure
we got a couple minutes yet.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I want to say to you, you're doing the Lord's work. I felt like God told me 8 years ago to try to organize the organized, and that's what you're doing. God showed me that the way we're fighting as Christians and conservatives is like if America went to war and the Army is doing one thing, the Navy another, the Air Force another, with no coordination, it's sure defeat. And that's the way Christians have been approaching things. But you're doing the Lord's work and bringing people together and getting them organized. So God bless you again.
Thank you very much. We're glad to do it. And we just need more people. You know, we need somebody in every state. And what I'm doing differently this time is every state, I'm calling my former people that were on and asking for new people so that these people can come up. Just worked in Delaware. You know, we work on all the blue states because we got to turn them red. And, you know, Broward County is one of the few counties in Florida that is still a little blue. And we're working to turn that. And we have General Chris Eddy, who ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He's heading that. And, you know, it's very important. So if you want to get involved, go to Stern American Rumble, go to Stern American, call me, email me, put my email down again, sstern1054@gmail.com. Glad to answer your questions. There's my office number, 954-318-6902. We'll call you back. We have funny things. People get on the shows and they call me and they say, hey, Steve really answered the phone. But what I do is I let you leave a message because we get a lot of crank calls. You know, people see me on the show sometimes.
No.
Sometimes there's a huge amount of people on. A lot of Democrats look into that because I want to let everybody know in the United States the most important thing right now. We have a lot of Democrats that register Republican in a red state and run, and then they side with the Democrats. So we got to be careful on who's running. I mean, there's a lot of guys that come out as Republican, but they're really Democrats, and we got to be very careful. That's one thing I want to let them know. So we have a lot of information. Glad to share it. I try to do like 4 or 5 programs a week and then get on some of the national programs. So I'm working around the clock. Glad to help. We can use anybody that wants to help. I got great 2 assistants now, which I didn't have 3 months ago. We're listing every state and who's there, because if you go to the state, a lot of times you can't even find out who to call. They don't even put their number up there. They don't put their email up there. How the heck do you expect people to, get involved? So we're trying to get every head of the Republican Party to communicate, because a lot of the hierarchy in the Republican Party never communicate with you. And we're working under them. So you would think there's communication, but we don't give up. As long as I'm here, like you said, we try to do the Lord's work. And, we try to balance our life with everything that we're doing. And I will be taking a vacation in August. So you will not be able to get a hold of me because my wife takes my phones away and says, Steve, I'm on vacation. I know you're going to text. So when I was running for office, I was on a cruise. I was running for vice chair of Broward County, which I am. And I was texting everybody around the clock, and everybody would text you back, Steve, you're on vacation. I don't want to hear from you. So here's my card. I actually went to breakfast this morning. Somebody came up to me and said, hey, where do you get these flag shirts? I said, well, I own the company. I gave him www.theflagshirt.com. And he said, can I join the Republican Party? I said, well, here's my card. Call me and we'll get you involved. So wear your flag shirts and get out there, because people will realize that you're patriotic, because patriotism is coming back. I do a Flag Day event every year. We get 7 or 8 million people, 10 million people. We have no idea, but it's on there. If you want to see some of the great people that were on our flag, it's on Stern American Rumble. So I see we're running out of time. It's been a great pleasure being here, but if you got a little time, I'm still willing to answer any questions.
We're gonna have to go, Steve. Go plug yourself in, and then get ready to answer some phone calls. Okay. God bless you, sir.
You got it. Thanks for having me on.
Steve Stern. Wow. Energy. And on our team, huh? And organized. That's all. That's hard to believe. Mr. Anderson, if you would. Second hour, we're going to be talking about the family and how we're going to get that back together too. Organized.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Wendy Calhoun, spokesperson for Starbucks Workers United. Recently, the evil actions of the Starbucks Corporation have forced us to enact strikes across hundreds of stores. To the evil leaders of the Starbucks Corporation, here are your disgruntled employees' lists of completely reasonable demands. Our first demand is that we must be allowed to work from home. If customers want coffee, they can come to our homes and pick it up. It's only fair. 2, we demand up to 375 sick days per year. This is industry standard. Anything less is a human rights violation according to the Genevieve Convention. 3, we asked the Starbucks Corporation to print a land acknowledgement on every cup of fresh brewed Starbucks coffee. Oh, and by the way, I am currently standing on the ground of the Louisiana and Serrano peoples. Rest in power. 4, we demand a break time of 3 hours for every 30 minutes of work. Mama needs her break time. 5, we want 6 to 12 months of maternity leave for every pregnant man who gives birth. We call this the Buttigieg rule. 6, we demand the right to deny service to any white, heterosexual, or cisgendered customers. Your right to frequent an establishment ends where my right to discriminate against cis-het crackers begins. 7, we demand the Starbucks Corporation pay for our student debt and any debts racked up by shopping on Temu, and our Amazon credit card debt, and we want free Netflix subscriptions, and what the heck, let's throw in Paramount Plus. There's not a lot on there, but then we'll have it. 8, we demand
keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Go team. Steve is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And he's doing a lot. He's a lot more organized than I am, but that's okay. That's okay. We all fit that little crossword puzzle. We all got a piece in it. I want to start the second hour off with, I don't know how many of you are golf fans, but last week there's a gentleman by the name of Scotty Scheffler who had his 17th tour victory. He's number 1 in the world right now in golf. And I think is the number 1 example in the world of being a father of a family. What keeps getting attention in his character, his priorities, his sense of perspective, and his conviction that golf is not the most important thing in life, even when you're playing at the game's highest level. Here's a quote from Scotty. I love the challenge about golf, being able to play this game for a living. It's one of the greatest joys of my life, but does it fill the deepest, wants and desires of my heart? Absolutely not. If winning doesn't drive the best golfer in the world, what does? Longtime fans of Scheffler already know his Christian faith defines him. A close second, however, is his role as a husband and father. In the same interview where Scheffler repeated Psalm 39 recognition that life is fleeting, he declared that if my golf ever started affecting my home life, or if it ever affected the relationship I have with my wife or with my son, that's going to be the last day I play out here for a living. I don't think Scotty is even 30 years old yet. Is he in that Gen Zer? And is it having an effect on our culture? Nike, his sponsor, celebrated the win with a post on X. Headline, priorities unchanged. Another major secured. The win keeps coming on and off for the course for Scotty Scheffler. When Nike's message celebrates fatherhood, culture change, may well be afoot, folks. Webb Simpson, a past U.S. Open champion, co-host a podcast. In one episode, Scheffler was a guest, and Simpson articulated what he thinks makes Scheffler different from so many other athletic stars. It's super rare. I mean, you had to be thinking that before I even said that. It's super rare in sports to see the top of the top, who are the best at their sport, faithfully walk with God. A lot of young listeners, high school guys, or even college kids around us are fearful that if they walk in the Lord, they're going to lose their competitive edge. Somehow, somebody thought a long time ago that because you're a Christian means you're a soft competitor. But you embody a faithful man of God who is a fierce competitor. Go, Scotty Scheffler. I love that. I love that. On the other hand, this is an article about the birth rate by Michael Snyder. According to the CDC, the birth rate in the United States just dropped to the lowest level in its history. We're literally not even replacing ourselves. And that has all sorts of implications for the future. You can think Social Security. But, in order for the population of our nation to remain perfectly stable, women need to be giving birth to an average of 2.1 children because not all children make it into adulthood. What about having enough workers? The birth rate in the U.S. fell below 1.6 children per woman in 2024, which means America is dying. Keep thinking about that book I'm writing, Romans 2. And there's so similarities between what happened in Rome and what happened in America today. Rome is no longer in existence, my humble opinion, because they stopped appreciating the value of the family. They stopped having children. And when they stopped having children, they had to open the border to illegal immigrants. Sort of, kind of. Who eventually took over the Roman Empire. In 1960s, the birth rate was what? 3.5 children per woman. But plummeted to 1.7 by 1976. The baby boom was over. So what caused the shift? According to CBS News, an average U.S. women are waiting longer to have children. And many are choosing never to have children at all. Why? Being a parent, father or mother, is the most incredible experience that you will ever have in life. There is nothing like it. And my heart goes out to those that won't have children, but especially to those that can't have children. I often kid about when I graduated from college. I thought I was smart. I was very successful in business. Thought I knew it all. And then God gave me children. And I recognized, number one, how dumb I was. But number two, a new meaning of love that is hard to explain. When you have in your household young children that you would die for, that's love, folks. Like you've never experienced it before. Yet, we're not having the children. Because we're waiting so long, there's infertility problems. Of course, there's a rising cost of having children, right? Most Americans just barely scrape by from month to month these days. And having a kid is really expensive. It can take hundreds of thousands of dollars to raise a single child to adulthood in the United States. It's been estimated that raising a child from birth to age 18 in the United States can cost between $200,000 and $310,000. In Massachusetts, it's over $500,000. Childcare, yeah, huge part of this. Parents can expect to pay anywhere from $3,000 to $21,000 annually on childcare. Let's do a little math here. $1,300. I'm taking a low figure. $1,300 times 12 times 5 years is $80,000. That's up to 5 years old. That's without grandparents, aunts and uncles. Well, BJ, they no longer live in the same city. How can they possibly take care of the children? Great point. I think of Coach Dave Daubenmire, a good friend, CoachDaveLive.com. His family are all here in Ohio. No, they're all here in the same city in Ohio. No, they're all here in almost the same location, next door neighbor in a couple instances, with his daughter and son and their grandchildren. I wonder if they're spending $500,000 a year on childcare and taking care of the children. And when something goes wrong, we've really lost it, folks. We've really lost it. We teach our kids in government-run schools that life has no meaning, morals are relative, man, not God, is the measure of all things, and the state's your daddy. And as a result, those government-run indoctrination centers send us back little quote-unquote Romans who don't have your values, who don't respect you, who are independent and don't think they need anything. You send them to a government-run school and you tell them what? You tell them to respect the teachers, respect authority. In a lot of cases, that authority corrupts your child's mind, teaches them things that you would not have them taught, and you don't even know what's happening. At least that is until your child comes back a different sex, or with their boyfriend or girlfriends. As goes the family, so goes the nation, folks. The family in America is broken. We don't even know anymore what a family should be. We don't have respect for mothers and fathers who would give their life for you. It's just not there. We've lost contact with our children, and children have lost contact with their parents and with the rest of their relatives. In the beginning, it was Adam and Eve. And then the family grew from there into a patriarchy. I hear you out there. Yeah, that's where you learn leadership, folks, in the family. And that's another thing. When I see, I saw a post on the neighborhood about gun control and about how children are killing each other with guns. And my response was, well, whenever I see something like that, I wonder what kind of a family environment those children were in. Mm-hmm. And when you see about Columbine and all those other school shootings and the killings of young children, you wonder, where are the parents? Or the riots, where are the parents? But we don't think that way, do we? We want to teach our children to be independent. I'll get more into this detail, but we want to take a break here. BJ Edwards along, Mr. Anderson. If you want to pipe in, folks, please do so. We got our panel. As goes the family, so goes the nation, and we're in trouble as a nation because the family is just flat out broken.
Israel, God's people under the old covenant, understood this as a curse. And yet we're sitting here like seals, clapping about how much strength we now have because of our diversity, how open-minded we are, how progressive thinking we are. We think it's a blessing. We think it's a brag. We think that it's some characteristic of higher evolvement. This is insane. We are being conquered, and nobody forced us into this. Yes, some wicked politicians that we voted for. We are voting in voluntarily our own demise and giving the heritage of our fathers to foreigners instead of our children. This is a very, very wicked thing, and it does not matter if the politician in question is running as a Republican who's memorized the Declaration of Independence and wears a cowboy hat and a Texas flag shirt at his rodeo, photo ops, or if he's a blatant socialist in New York. In either case, if your name is Omar or Vivek or Zoran, you're not American. And you can be here and behave as a guest, but you cannot hold political office. You cannot rule over the native citizenry of this nation. Absolutely not. And any true red-blooded American who's celebrating these things or even passively sitting by and allowing these things to happen is a traitor to God and country. Let's tune in now.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Back into the family in America and the low birth rate. We just went through childcare. Here's another item, if you will. Most women are working. Do we teach our children the benefits of parenthood? Clem, pipe in, brother.
Boy, what a great show today. You've hit so many topics. We could do about 20 hours of commentary on just the topics you've already hit this morning. Wow. That Steve guy, whether you agree with his agenda or not, his model is absolutely correct. Absolutely the way to do it. The model. Be a billboard. Be a billboard. If you're going to go out in town and wear a Budweiser hat, why not wear a Coach Dave hat? If you're going to put on a t-shirt, why not put on a Natural Family t-shirt? Come on, folks, be a billboard. It's simple. And his tenacity, his example, I was hoping to get on with him just to congratulate him. He gave Trump 4 assistants a card. Trump instructed them to contact him, right?
Yeah.
In part of his dialogue. I've seen it happen over and over. That's exactly right. Did he wait for a call? No, he went and banged on the door. It was such a perfect example of how it works. You got to bang on the door. If you're waiting for them to call you, forget it. You got to bang on the door over and over and over. I can give you examples till the cows come home of how that works. We did that with Governor LePage in Maine. I mean, we put the effort in. We filed charges against the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and the governor. On all they had to do to defang us was respond. They could have said, "You're a liar," and we couldn't have said anything. They responded. They never responded. 15 minutes before we did a press conference in the Hall of Flags, in the Capitol building. We went to the governor's office and said, please respond. He was sitting right there, 10 feet away, but he couldn't hear us. And we gave his receptionist the information, please have the governor respond. He didn't even know we were in the office. That's how the staff works. It's incredible, incredible. And the next subject, you hit so many of them today. It was great. The contraception. Since contraception, women, young women, 2 of my daughters have been on those stupid birth control pills or that Depo-Provera shot. By the time they get around to thinking it'd be a good time to have a family, they're incapable of conceiving because they've been pregnant for 15, 20, 25 years. And their body says, too late. I'm tired. I've been pregnant for 15 years. I can't do it anymore. Forget it. So, and then we have that birth rate that you're talking about, 1.6. Holy smokes. We're dying. The country is absolutely dying. And our enemies are cranking out 5. We're cranking out 1.6. No wonder we're failing.
Yeah, many of those enemies are here in the United States cranking them out, by the way.
That's what I mean. Absolutely. Absolutely. And they're taking over. But they're friends. They're friendly. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to get back to work. We're going to be in a parade this afternoon, so I got to get Mercy's electric bike cleaned up and put the signs on, and put the flag on. And the Caribou Cares About Kids parade. So we'll be out there, buddy.
And brother, appreciate you. This you have no idea who you're going to meet, by the way, once you start engaging the culture. You're going to I don't know. Did you want in James Bond?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say on my foundational thinking is get your kids out of government schools. That's the key. That's the key. Get your kids out of government schools. And if you are a grandparent and you have children, grandkids, push grocery carts at Walmart to do it if you have to.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, but unfortunately, most parents or grandparents can't get that through to their young children. Or most parents
I think Jim, you're correct to some extent. I think a lot of parents would do it, but for the fact they have to both be working. And they don't have the extra money, supposedly. So my hope would be is that your kids, if you said, hey, listen, I'm willing to help financially do this if you want to do it. Well, hopefully some of them would say yes to that.
Well,
I got a suggestion for you. A lot of people aren't going to do that. But as a grandparent, instead of working at Walmart for your grandkids, get involved in the school that the parents won't take them out of and make the school crazy. You can do it, grandparents. You can show up. You can go to school board meetings. You can go to your town council and make them do it. You can do it. You might not be able to work at Walmart.
Yeah. I would only say this to that, and not everybody shares this position. The schools are lost. I don't think they're coming back.
Well, yeah,
in general,
you could say that
overall,
about
that's correct. But your local school system, you can impact. You can really do it.
You can help limit damage. We did a project in New Hampshire, and I've not followed up on this, where schools are always complaining about not having enough help. So they initiated a program where grandparents, aunts, and uncles could come in and help the school. And just their presence there stops a lot of this insanity, because they like to work in the dark and this is something that, again, we're Do Radio. Talk to your local school system and see if you can get some kind of a program where parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, close relatives can come in and help the school work. They're not going to say to you, we don't need the help. Because if they say to you, we don't need the help, that means they don't need to pass the next levy, right? They have enough money.
Jim,
So, go ahead.
Jim,
Starts with showing up.
in the city, in the Chicago school system, in the Columbus school system, in the Los Angeles school system, you're better to get your kids out.
I agree. I absolutely agree with
Absolutely.
it. If you have let's say you have a grandchild, and the generation that's raising that grandchild are insisting on putting that individual that child into a public school. You can't control that. But if you're there in that school, even your your in-laws or your children know that you're going to be there. They might even give it a second thought. Well, wait a minute. If dad or mom there, I ain't sending that child to that school. I don't want them to be exposed to that individual. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Well, the problem's a lot bigger than we give it credit for, It took a lot of years for the evil side, I'll call it the evil side or the dark side, to infiltrate the schools and the systems. But it's not just the schools, you got the politics and you got the local councils and school boards and all of those things to deal with. I like Jack's idea. Grandparents, get into the schools if you can.
Yes. Yeah.
And act like a reporter. My goodness, take notes, understand what is going on in the school. Most people who have children remember school like it was when they were in school. They have no idea what's happening in the schools now. And getting involved inside the programs and knowing what it is and reporting back to parents and other grandparents and people in the town and letting them know, hey, did you know this was in there? Did you know that was going on? Did people need to hear what's going on? Schools are trying to close their doors on parent influence, and you need to push your way in and hold your ground.
Amen. They they're limiting the amount of time you can talk now at school board meetings, and even the issues from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, and it won't be long until it's a 30-second, and then you have to get your 30 seconds in, and then they don't have time for anything else. Maybe I'm being facetious, maybe not. But I'd forgotten about the idea that happened in New Hampshire, and I'm going to have to try to visit that with some of the folks here locally that are activists, and they're fighting the levies, and I understand that, and the property taxes. Ohio is extremely high in terms of their property taxes. I think they're higher than California. I even heard they were higher than New York. Absolutely amazing, right? So we have to get in the game, if you will. And I think that might be one way of doing that. I'd totally forgotten about that. And I'm glad we had the program this morning because I was just reminded of it. It's something I think I'm going to pursue. Something else you can pursue, by the way, again, this is Do Radio, and then we'll take a break, is the next time you speak with a family member, a best friend, or a good neighbor, start the conversation off with this. I heard something that caught my eye the other day. They were talking about having a natural family month from Mother's Day through Father's Day. What do you think about that? And that is Mother's Day through Father's Day, May through June. But that doesn't mean you can't talk about that now. It's what you think about it is what's important. That's what you're trying to find out. What do they think about that? And to me, that's kind of like having a Christian conversation and starting the conversation off with, well, do you believe that that mankind was created, or that mankind just evolved? That's a conversation starter, as is the national family.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We're due radio here, folks. You got some ideas? We want to hear them. JR at naturalfamilystrong.com. JR at naturalfamilystrong.com. Let us know. Maybe you've tried some things that have worked, or tried some things that need to work better. We want to hear about that. We have to hear about that so we can share it with others. And by the way, if this is the first time you've been listening to the program, like us, subscribe to us, whatever you have to do. It means a lot. Mr. Anderson, if you would take us to a break, and I'll try to finish my report on why we're not having more children. What a mess. B.J. Edwards along, Mr.
I propose, and would have already started, if your hypothesis is correct, a planned and orderly transfer back to the states and local communities of functions the federal government has usurped and which it has proven it is incapable of operating. And one of the first of those would be welfare. One of the second would be in the field of education. I would like to dissolve the $10 billion National Department of Education created by President Carter and turn schools back to the local school districts where we built the greatest public school system the world has ever seen. I think I can make a case that the decline in the quality of public education began when federal aid became federal interference. I propose
faith, discussion, and so much more. Last Call with BJ Edwards.
It's all about you. Why has the birth rate in the United States fallen to the lowest level ever recorded? This is an article by Michael Snyder. We've been going through it. We've talked about the threats to Social Security, work conditions, women no longer wanting children, rising cost. And we were getting into most women are working. Another reason why the birth rate has been falling. And we send our children, you better go to college. You better go to talk to Charlie Kirk about that, by the way. You better go to college. You got to go to college. Got to put yourself in debt. Then you have to work yourself out of it. The primary years, healthy years for having children is not after you're 30 and certainly not after you're 40. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying the primary years are before then. Are you saying in the teens? Are you saying in the 20s? What is the matter with you? What's the matter with us? It's no longer seen as something that you should be doing. Again, the experience, the parental experience is an incredible experience. I can't imagine not having gone through life and not experienced that. Whether my own children are adopted, it is so special. But we don't know that. Our children don't know that. I did talk to a Gen Zer the other day from the Charlie Kirk organization, working for Charlie Kirk. 4 children. Four children. If not for the country, then for yourself. If you make it be selfish. Have children. Be selfish, right? Please. Have children. Be selfish, right, Norm?
That's right. That's right. Hey, our schools is a consequence of a deeper problem.
Okay.
Let's go back to God's instructions to the family. The words I command you today shall be on your heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Okay. The role of the parents, and I want to narrow down the family to the man. It's the man's responsibility to lead the family.
Yes, sir.
So when the responsibility of the parents coming from the man was to teach their children God's ways and the relationship that God wanted with his people. Now, when you don't have a relationship, we still have the hunger within us to fill that hole.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
So what does the world tell us? Well, you're going to find it, in more education and a bigger house and a nicer car, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
So not having the relationship leads us to looking for other ways to fill the hole, which most people turn to materialism. And that's why the women are having to work all the time. And then, they get involved in their careers and, they don't have the kids, don't want to have the kids because it's going to interrupt, their career. So again, the deeper problem is the family not doing its role of training their kids in the way they should go. And, and we've talked 100 times, the family is the base from which all things flow. And see, everything comes out of the family. Our concept of God, for one, and when you don't have the proper concept of God, you're going to live in fear a lot. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to have depression, all these other things that people are visiting their psychiatrists for and taking depression medicine for.
Great point.
But again, it comes back to not following God's instructions to the family about training their kids.
Our Father in heaven. Go ahead.
Amen.
And how about our brothers and sisters in Christ? I mean, there's another thing that this article doesn't even talk about, and that is when you do decide to have children, not plural, just a child, and that's what I see a lot of. One child's enough. That's plenty. They're a lot of work. They're a lot of work, and I don't want to have any more. But a child benefits from having brothers and sisters,
right,
and understanding relationships, and they've got a buddy, that they need, as versus somebody outside of the family that they're gonna take to, maybe somebody that is in government-run schools that has taken the indoctrination that becomes your buddy. You got no one to talk to about it. You don't have a brother or sister to talk to about it. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and the church has failed miserably in encouraging young folks and providing help from the older ladies to the younger ladies, and so yeah, we're just in deep trouble.
We are, but it's an opportunity at the same time.
Sure.
We're facing it right now. It's kind of like buying a house and on a mortgage. Well, I don't have to pay for all that right now, so I'll just go ahead and pay intermittently here, intermittently there, and do a little bit here and do a little bit there, not knowing that somebody's going to come in and take that house when you're done paying for it. And that's where we are with regards to America and the family. And listen, if we're being overtaken by interests that are using the family, and we don't even see what's happening. And both ends of that. One end is growing families. The other end is not having any families at all. Both ends are working against us. The strength in America is our family. And we're told that by what Norm is referring to, is by the Bible. That's where we, the Bible's been accused of being an instruction manual. And I'm not very good at reading instructions, so I had to do it the hard way. But a lot of people pay attention to the instruction manual. And it tells you, honor your mother and father. Well, you got to have a mother and father to honor them, right? And it's not talking about mothers and fathers. In today's America, with almost a 50% divorce rate, or a 40% divorce rate, 50% of children don't live with their biological mother and father. That's confusing. It's also unbiblical, but that's confusing. And you mentioned a vacuum, Norm, and I can tell you from personal experience, not having that mother or that father, or having an abusive mother or father, creates a need in a child, a natural need in a child, It's like having you were talking about a need to have children. Well, children have a need to have parents and have their biological parents. And when they don't have that, they desperately will do anything to try to fill that gap.
Right. And that's why gangs are so powerful.
Yep.
You know, hey, we'll accept you. Come on, be a part. And, you know, it's again, all goes back to the family and the dads.
And the LGBT community that see that struggling child and put their arm around them and say, "Ooh, we understand we understand you. We get you.
Yep, absolutely.
Join us."
And say, I was thinking about something this week that I'd written about, you know, as the further we move away from truth, the more extreme things people will do in order to try to get that need met. And that's where we're at. And let me tell you, you know, we're cutting off baby parts right now, but there's something more evil, and I can't imagine what it is that's coming next, because you can trace it back. You know, we go from one evil to the next, and the next one is always worse than the last one.
I think I had a headline where a child is now going to have 3 biological parents. They're playing with science. Well, I don't want my child to have this, but I want him to be 6'4". And I don't want him to have this, but I want him to be a male, or I want him to be a female, or have these characteristic blue eyes or whatever. They're now dabbling in that and mixing parts. I don't, I think biblically about the Tower of Babel and how man got to the point where they thought they were so smart that God said, okay, enough, gone.
And that's a neat verse. Matter of fact, I was reading that this morning. Genesis 11:4, the people said, "Come, let us build for a city with a tower which will reach into the heavens, so that we might make a name for ourselves." And so what is there making a name? Look at me, look at what I've accomplished, that need for significance. And God just saved them a whole lot of trouble and said, you're not going to find your significance and acceptance and sense of belonging in a tower. You're going to find it with me. But that's what we do.
Amen. Mr. Anderson?
How much influence do you think it has with people promoting the idea that we're overpopulated, that we have too many people in the world, and guilt tripping people for having children?
I don't understand that philosophy, why anyone would come up with that philosophy. I don't understand it from a materialistic standpoint, because the more people, the more consumers, and the more they can do for you and the more they can make for you. Do either one of you understand why that philosophy ever was generated?
Yes, I do.
Go for it.
As I've said before, say every person on planet Earth has a spiritual father. And given time, we develop the characteristics of our spiritual father. And as Jesus said in John 8:44, he said, it's your father, the devil, and your desires is to do his will. And he was a murderer from the beginning, and the truth is not in him. And so his children developed the very characteristics of lying, of murder. That's why we've got 65 or 70 million dead babies, because they're the spiritual children of the devil is leading it. So yeah, everything that God intended is under attack by the devil and his people.
We're talking about 1.6 or 1.7 birth rate. Think what would happen if we stopped killing 1 million children a year.
Right.
We're back up to the 2.6,
right.
2.7.
We wouldn't need all these illegals to do our jobs. No, we've shot ourselves in the foot with that.
Well, we have
shot ourselves in the head.
We have.
That was part of my point, and I'll probably play those videos again that I had where he starts out reading from Deuteronomy 48, I believe. 28. I'm sorry.
That's the blessings and cursings chapter.
Yes, and the destruction of a nation because of not obeying God, bottom line. And that sequence might have been better played on this half of the show than the first half. But the idea that the nation turning its back and not complying to God's will, these curses come in many, many different ways. And our solution isn't what we can do on our own, but it's what we can gain by appealing to God and turning our faces back to Him.
But the neat news is we as individuals can do that. Whether we do it as a nation or not is one thing, but we as individuals can turn back to God, and God can bless us regardless of what's going on around us.
Individually, yes, but if you're looking to save a nation,
right,
you're going to need a cooperation of a nation.
You bet. You bet. Of course, I think the end is near, but that's another subject.
Yeah. Well, not on my watch. Anyway, we I'm not here to lose. We're gonna have to take a break here, Mr. Anderson. I need to get back to finish that article. I can't get away from most women are working. So when we come back, I'll get into the most women are working aspect and try to finish this up. BJ Edwards, along with Mr. Anderson, your last call, folks.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
And then we have institutional medicine, which isn't helping us out either. Most women aren't working. We've gone through a difficult time with being a full mother. Most of the women in high income countries now work, while it's previously reasonable to consider having children as a widespread priority for women, resulting in a tension between a lifetime career and the way motherhood interrupts or alters that lifetime career progression. Amazing. But even women that don't work are having fewer children. Children used to be considered a blessing, but our culture regards them as a burden to be avoided in our me-centered culture. And we now prioritize ourselves over everything else. The idea of making sacrifices for your family and your children is an anathema in this day and age. Young people are frequently told that they will ruin their lives if they get married too early or have children too early in a society that encourages them to run around and have lots of fun before they settle down, if they ever even decide to do that. Our movies, our television shows, and our music glorifies the single lifestyle. Did I have to mention if we stopped aborting million baby? Yeah, I mentioned that, didn't I? So has all this self-indulgence made us any happier? We have a natural need for love and to be loved, as Norm and I repeated. And the family unit has always been the basic building block of society all throughout human history. We are committing societal suicide in so many other ways. The clock is ticking. That's the author's conclusion. Please take what we're talking about with a grain of salt. Cure. Think in terms of, okay, now we have more details about what our children are thinking. Now that we know that, how do we deprogram them? What are the steps we need to take? Next time you speak to a family member, talk to them about what's the natural family? What? What's the natural family? Well, that would be one biological born man and woman, a lifelong committed monogamous relationship. What? Yeah, let me tell you about that. That's where your mom and dad came from. the people to put you in a position where you could make the decisions you're making today. That's where we came from, or however that conversation goes. But start it, however you want to start it. I'm just making a suggestion about the natural family. You could start it with a sports item. You know, that golfer we talked about, Scotty? What do you think about that? He's able to be the number one golfer in the world, yet his priority is family. What do you think about that? And what you're going to hear is what they've been told to think about that. And you need to be prepared to not necessarily tell them they're wrong, but to offer them other options. They like to be individual. They like to be different. Woo, what an opportunity here. Have children when you're younger. That'd be different. I am, at least the ones I've met, I'm so impressed with the Gen Zers. I don't know why they are the way they are. And I think about the young lady that we had on that was a J6 prisoner that was pregnant before or when she went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. And during the court trial, she lost that child. And then soon afterwards, they put her in prison in solitary confinement. Gen Zer. And how she turned that into a very positive. I'm going to have to reconnect with her, Mr. Anderson. And some of those other J6ers to see how they're doing. But I was very impressed with the Gen Zers that I spoke with. The fact that they were even there should amaze you. But what you do with those troubles that you get in life, what you do with them means an awful lot. They are opportunities.
That's how you make a diamond. A little pressure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think about my past and what I went through, and you still look. You're still going to walk with a limp. That's just going to happen. But where would you be?
Happened to Jacob, I think.
Yeah. But where would you be without that limp? You'd be running to trouble. I guarantee you'd be running to trouble. Now you can't run to trouble. Number one, you know better. And maybe that's a daily reminder. I don't understand all that. Yeah, I got questions. Yeah, I got questions. A lot of them. But it's
we all do. We all do.
Just think of the people you get to meet, Mr. Anderson, when you're in the battle.
Some amazing people, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And their stories all talk about coming out of the pressure, something changed their life when they're sitting there. And their testimonies are powerful and real.
Yeah.
And everlasting.
Amen. I'm looking for something. I think this is it, but I'm not sure. Let's try it, see what happens.
I couldn't wait to be a mum. I remember specifically, before we even got married, talking about how important children would be in our lives.
I wanted a daughter first, then I wanted a son. And we were planning on having 4 children.
We were going to be the most perfect parents that we could be.
Bella was born, and that was a wonderful experience.
Bella was just this angelic, perfect child. She hit all her milestones. I got pregnant with Billy quite quickly.
Bella, say hello to Billy.
Hello. We've now got a beautiful girl and a beautiful boy. Life was just amazing. So at 2, 4 and 6 months, Billy had his normal baby vaccines. A little bit snivelly, chesty, coldy after maybe the last one. So me, in my perfect mother mode, rushed to the doctor. Is he okay? Do I need to give him anything? Yes, you need to give him antibiotics, just to make sure there's not an infection in there. It didn't clear up. Rushing back to the doctor, oh, we need some more antibiotics. Let's just keep this going in him. And I remember my mother calling me out. My mother's a sort of homeopathic hippie, and calling out saying, "What are you doing? You're chucking loads of antibiotics down your son for what?" And I'm saying to her, "Mum, with all due respect, you're an artist, and they're doctors, so they know best." He was due his MMR vaccination at 12 months. So the morning, exactly to the day, my friend, she said to me, "Listen, I've heard that there may be a problem with this vaccine we're about to take Billy for, the MMR." And I said, "Liz, are you crazy? What is the matter with you? If there was a problem with this vaccination, it would be headline news. The doctor would be calling me up saying, 'Do not bother coming in. This is not a safe vaccine.' None of that is happening. You're being negative, you're being careless, and you're listening to what? Some rumour that you heard somewhere. Billy could become deaf if I don't take him in now and get him this MMR." Without a doubt, what's happened to Billy has changed his life.
Yeah, there you go. Give it a strike.
What I have on my hands now is a 19-year-old man. He's 6'2". He is volatile. On good days, Billy is brilliant. He's an angel. On bad days, the slightest thing can trigger him, and he's scary.
I'm going to go downstairs and get
Billy,
Daddy right now.
You need to stay up here, okay?
I'm going to kill Daddy right now.
Bill, listen to me. I'm going to stay with you up here, and you're going to try and calm down, okay?
The reason they become aggressive and dangerous in some cases is because they have no ability to communicate.
Because Mummy asked Kent for Kent bringing the sweet corn and then bringing the chickens here. Because this is your fault, Mummy.
If you were not able to express your needs, your wants, your desires, your happiness and sadness and so on, you would become aggressive. That's often when we see the worst part of autism.
We had to occupy his room and use his video player. And of course, that is a massive intrusion in his space, and he got very upset.
Where else in this house can we play a video? Remember? Listen, Bill. Push the stress level, Billy.
Bill, don't touch Danny. Out there, there's millions of me's, there's millions of polytommies with vaccine-damaged children. I am telling you this because I do not want you to live the life that I've led. I do not want you to go through the pain. I do not want to see you suffer or your family suffer. That is why I'm telling you. I have no other reason to tell you about it. It's not my concern. My kid's already damaged.
We are a sick nation. I wanted to talk about, well, I think they're taking mercury out of the vaccines now. Not that that's anything related to what we just said, but just saw, but maybe, who knows? Anyway, I want to thank you all for listening in today. Don't forget, tell your friends about us. Subscribe, but do something. You don't like this, what the school's doing, get in there and volunteer to help them out. Be a homeroom assistant.
And take notes.
Yeah, take notes. Amen. Let's get out of here, Mr. Anderson. Thank you all for listening in today.
Join us next week for Last Call with BJ Edwards.